eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And God only gave them one thing not to do, and they didn't listen. They ate the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Isn't it some like that, times like that with us? Does your mum sometimes say, you can't have a biscuit before your tea? What do you want to do? Eat a biscuit before your tea. Isn't it sometimes that somebody says, don't stick your finger in that socket because it'll hurt? And what do you immediately then want to do?
Stick your finger
in the socket. Just see what it's like, and it hurts, doesn't it? And it's not just when we're young. So, we're told in society, don't use your mobile phone when you're driving. And sometimes we do it. I've seen somebody do it on the way to church this morning. Not somebody from church. I've seen somebody driving around this morning. We're told not to do certain things. But God said to them, do not eat that from that tree. And it was the one thing they were told not to do. And it was the one thing they did. And sometimes when we do some things that God says not to do, then as it happened with Adam and Eve, whether they were real or not, whether the creation story in Genesis is real or not, it came into all of us, into us as human beings and into our human nature that when somebody says don't do that, we want to do it, which is really sad. So we're going to think a bit more about it in a moment, but Susie and the band have chosen our next hymn. Are you going to teach it us, or are we?
Yes.
You're going to teach it us first.
So the band will play it through once, and the word.
So we keep making the same mistakes as Adam and Eve. They were told by God, don't eat that fruit, and they ate it. And from them, human nature means that we all do things that we're not supposed to do. So, when has your mum and dad told you not to do something and you have done it? Who's willing to admit to something that they were told not to do and they've done it? Perhaps I should ask mums and dads. Nothing. Nobody's ever done something that they were told. Well, I was always doing stuff that I was told not to do. One day I was told, I must have been about 7 or 8, and we lived in a place where there were lots of new houses being built, and I was told that I wasn't to touch a ladder that was resting up against the side of the house. Now, if I hadn't been told not to touch the ladder, I would not have thought about the ladder. But what I did was I took the ladder and I put it down a manhole, and I persuaded the boy who lived next door to me to go down the manhole to see what was there. And what's worse is I picked the ladder up and I took it home and left him. I got in so much trouble. But actually my mum said don't touch the ladder, not because she wanted to be a spoil sport, but because she knew that actually doing something on the ladder could have been really dangerous to me. It was certainly dangerous to Keith Barrett. It could have been really, really dangerous, and you don't do stuff like that. And sometimes we think when God says don't do, or mum or dad or teacher says don't do, we think it's because they want to spoil us having fun, but actually it's not about that, is it? Why do they say don't do sometimes?
Because they don't want you to get hurt.
They don't want you to get hurt. Well done, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah?
Because he wants to be mean to you.
Anybody else, Eddie?
They don't want to get in trouble.
They don't want you to get in trouble. Yeah?
We don't want to tell it off.
You don't want to tell you off. They also say don't because they love you. And because they want to God gives us boundaries because he loves us as our mums and dads do. But Adam and Eve ate a piece of fruit. We often think it was an apple. I'm sure it wasn't. But we often symbolise it as a piece of fruit. And so human nature fell. And God needed a solution to human nature that had fallen. Because of that, we become separated from God. What do you think, or who do you think, was God's solution? Who was God's solution to the fall? You're at theological college.
It's not No, Jesus is
It's his then. Jesus was the solution to the fall. Thank you. And God sent Jesus into the world. And he helps us do different things. He helps us to say no to the temptation when somebody tells us don't do something. He helps us to love other people, and he helps us to live a Christian life. But we're thinking today, 50 days ago we had the resurrection. It was Easter Sunday and we were all celebrating. 10 days ago we had the ascension when Jesus went back to heaven. And today we're celebrating Pentecost, because when Jesus went back to heaven 10 days ago, he said to his believers, stay here and wait, and I'm going to send another helper to you. So they waited and they waited and they prayed and they stayed together and they wondered about what was going to happen. And then we have the day of Pentecost. And this is the birthday of the church. And on Pentecost Sunday, most people, when they're asked if they'd like to read, they look at the reading and they say, I don't think I can do that. But Eddie and Annie are going to read it for us. It's one of the hardest passages to read, isn't it? But you're going to read it for us. So this is the story of Pentecost. And this is where we go from the fall to the rise. So you're going to read for us, guys? Oh, yeah, sorry I didn't. Are you reading from the lecture? Brilliant.
This reading is taken from Acts, chapter 2, verses 1 to 13. The Holy Spirit comes at Pentecost, ascended like a strong wind. When the feast of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. Without warning, there was a sound like a strong wind, gale force. No one could tell where it came from. It filled the whole building. Then, like a wildfire, the Holy Spirit spread through their ranks. They started speaking in a number of different languages as the Spirit prompted them. There were many Jews staying in Jerusalem just then, devout pilgrims from all over the world. When they heard the sound, they came on the run. Then when they heard, one after another, their own mother tongues being spoken, they were thunderstruck.
They couldn't for the life of them figure out what was going on, and kept saying, aren't these all Galileans? How come we're hearing them talk in our various mother tongues? Parthians, Medes and Elamites, visitors from Mesopotamia, Judea and Cappadocia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt, and the parts of Libya belonging to Cyrene, both Jews and proselytes, even Cretans and Arabs. They're speaking our languages, describing God's mighty works. Their heads were spinning. They couldn't make head or tail of any of it.
They talked back and forth, confused. What's going on here? Others joked. They're drunk on cheap wine. This is the story as recorded for us in the Acts of the Apostles. Thanks be to God.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Well done, because those words are really hard. So we have the fall with Adam and Eve, and then we have the rise, because when Jesus went back to heaven, we needed someone to help us to live our lives as Christians, to love as other people need to be loved. So God sent the Holy Spirit. And when I thought about the Holy Spirit, I thought, now how do I describe the Holy Spirit? Well, there's lots of ways to describe him, but we brought lots of things this morning, brought lots of things to show you that do what the Holy Spirit does. I asked people if they've got wind-up toys and different things, and Lynn brought me this little dog, and she said to me, if you stand him up, he does a backflip. So I stood him on the table at home. I hope you can see him, the little dog. She says, if you stand him on the table, he'll do a backflip. So I stood him on the table at home and I said, do a backflip. And guess what? He wouldn't do it. So do you think if you tell him, do a backflip, he might do it? Do you want to shout it out? Do a backflip. It's not very good. So what do we need to do?
Wind him up.
We need to wind him up. I hope you can see up now. You can. Watch. 1, 2, 3. Oh, isn't that fantastic? And there are all these toys that if you wind them up, well, they're good. You can have a go with them. You're really, really careful. And then I thought, well, I got my mobile phone out and I thought, I want to send Ben a text. And it won't work. And I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? What's the matter with my mobile phone? Turn it on. So if I press the button, will it now, it's coming on. I can now send Ben a text. Watch the little mouse. Just careful. And then somebody gave me a teapot and it says, it's a jack in a box. And I kept waiting for the jack to come out of the box and nothing happened. So what do I need to do? What do I do? Wow, so it works. And then I let me his Kindle so I could read. And I kept saying, I keep wanting to read my book. What's not working on this Kindle? Turn it on. And then, it's coming on now, I can read your book. At least I can see if I've got any emails or anything like that. Okay, right. So, down there, there's a bag up under the table. Bring them to the back. Let's see what we've got in here. We've got all sorts in here. Right. Who brought this for us this morning? Do you want to show us how it works? Right, so we put that up there. Okay. Now what else have we got? Oh, we've got another one. Whose is this? This is Nat's, isn't it? Right, if we put it on the floor, apparently, just make a bit of space, guys, so we can try it down there. This is a remote control car, and I've tried it in the vestry before because Nat's dad told me, you just press the buttons and it works. I thought, well, it doesn't work, so what am I doing wrong? What do we need to do now?
Switch it on.
You want to show us? Just find out. You haven't got that. You show us how that works.
I can do it too.
Just make a path so we can try it down there. Just go down up into your legs. Right, what else have we got? Whose is this? You show us how that works. Do you need this?
No, that one goes with
That one goes with that one. Right. Show that one. Yeah, just sit down for a minute. I know. I'll show you why in a minute. It might be coming down the aisle towards you at the back any minute. Try it again. Switch it on. Oh, yeah, should we switch it on at the moment? Actually, is it off now? Yeah? Sometimes we have to not just have, oh, well done. Whoa. Now, Robin's got one with him. Robin, do you want to show us how yours works? That's fantastic.
Bring it back.
Oh, and reversing as well. This Robin's, you can see it just here.
Wow.
How are we doing with this one?
I'm actually going to blow you.
So this is one of mine that I brought from home. And I looked at it, thank you so much. I want to just sit down. I looked at it for ages and thought, why is it not working? I put it down and I switched it on, and then I realised there's no batteries in it. And it's really frustrating, but actually it then made me think, this is just like the Holy Spirit. I need the Holy Spirit in my life. Because I don't know about you, but standing up here preaching on a Sunday morning is really scary. And I don't know how Annie and Eddie found doing that reading. Were you nervous before you did it? A little bit. You did a brilliant job with those words because they're really hard. And sometimes God says to us, I want you to do something in your life, and we feel really, really scared. So we need the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is like power. So you don't just need the batteries in, you need to switch it on, you need to do something with it. And it's the same with us. The Holy Spirit is given to every Christian, but sometimes we actually need to do something. We need to switch it on, just like the robots, and that doesn't work. Who's been to London? You went to London, didn't you? Who's been on the tube in London? Yeah? Love the tube in London. Did you go on the tube? It's the train system underneath, the underground underneath London. Did you go on that? Did you like it? Was it really exciting, jumping on and off all the different trains? If London has a power cut and its tube stations can't work, so its trains can't run, all of London grinds to a halt. And in a way, that's like us with the Holy Spirit. If London grinds to a halt because it hasn't got the power going to the tram, if we haven't got the Holy Spirit in our lives, we can't function as Christians. And He came today so that we can do all the things that we're called to do. So we're going to sing again. I'll collect all the toys up so we don't have any accidents. But you can, if you're careful, you can have a go with them after the service.
If the choir sing it through.
That we need, oh sorry Henry, should I put that in there? That we need the Holy Spirit. Because doing things like reading in church, or on Tuesday morning I should be going to St. Peter's to do their assembly. That's so scary, so I have to pray for the Holy Spirit before I go. I need the Holy Spirit as power. But, did you notice during the service, every so often, a particular slide came up and it had something on it? Chocolates. And what have you seen on the communion table? Chocolates. Who likes chocolate? Oh, you can all put your hands up now. Oh, quite a few in the congregation. Fantastic, put your hands down. The thing about the Holy Spirit is, and I'm going to go back to a verse in the Bible that I used a few weeks ago in the service. Ask and you will seek. Seeking you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. And I told a story to the adults when she'd gone into junior church that happened quite a few years ago when we lived in Bolton, before I was in the ministry. One day we had friends coming for tea, and it was a Saturday afternoon, so I rushed to the shops to do my shopping, and I rushed home again. And all the time while I'd been out, Les and our daughters had been sat watching the football on the television. And I came in from the shops and I carried 9 bags of shopping in from the car. I counted every single bag as I brought it in. And every time I walked through the living room, I sighed very dramatically and very heavily. So they all knew that the bags were really heavy. And we had a cat, she was called Twinkle. And I even said to the cat, you know, Twink, these bags of shopping are really heavy. And nobody took a blind bit of notice of me. Until I went into the front room, because I was so frustrated, and said, you've let me carry all those bags of shopping into the kitchen and nobody's bothered to help. And do you know what they said? Can you remember what they said? You only had to ask. And that's a bit like the Holy Spirit, that the Holy Spirit lives in us. And it's up to us to switch the power on and let the Holy Spirit in. But sometimes we say to God, I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I'm way out of my depth in this. And God says, you only had to ask. So who thought during the service, I quite like a piece of Hilary's chocolate? Well, do you know what? You only have to ask. So I'm going to open it now, but I'm not going to give it to you now. I'm going to give it to you after the service. But a bit like chocolate at the front of church on a service, and you only have to ask for a piece. And because I care about every single one of you, you can have a piece, you can have a piece after, you can all have a piece. If there's enough for you, you can all have a piece. Because I care about you, and because we as a church love you, you can have a piece of chocolate, because I want to give you something really good. But God says, I love you, I love every single one of you, and I want to give you something good. You only have to ask for the Holy Spirit. So perhaps some of you have asked for the Holy Spirit to come into your life. Perhaps some of you are a bit anxious and a bit nervous because on that first day, as Eddie and Annie read for us, everybody started to speak in lots of different languages, so we get a bit nervous about the Holy Spirit, but we don't need to be, because he comes to empower us. Adam and Eve brought the fall into existence, and God needed a solution, and the solution was Jesus Christ. But when Jesus could no longer be physically here, he sent a helper. And this helper comes in the Holy Spirit to empower us so that we can live, so we can love in the way that Jesus loved, so we can live in the way that Jesus wants us to live, so that we can share the good news of Jesus and have the right words to say. So you only have to ask. So who's asking for a piece of my chocolate? But who's asking for the Holy Spirit? Hands up. God bless you. You can have some chocolate, but the gift of the Holy Spirit is for every single one of you, not just for a moment as you eat the chocolate. The gift of the Holy Spirit is for every one of you, every single day of every part of your lives. Amen. Shall we say some prayers together? I think that's, are we up to prayers next? Do you want to say something? I'll follow whatever comes up on the screen. You want to ask? Notices and offering. I've just got a few notices to say.